Welcome back to the Star Trek convention. I am your unofficial host, Heather Ferris, and I am joined today by Fred and Rocky, and we're going to talk about our next panel. It's Michael, Dorn, and Levar Burton. Holy cow! Oh my god, you guys have to check it out. Something really amazing happens. You have to see it, and we will talk about it at the end of the panel. So join us for the commentary. We'll see you after.
Yeah, I think we need to try that again, right? Give it up for Levar
Very
and Michael!
nice.
Levar, I gotta tell you something.
Yes.
Once again, I'm a little upset. First of all, beautiful head of hair, as usual. I have none. And also, you can wear some clothes like nobody I've ever seen. And I gotta tell you something, and we talked about this before, it's like, when I was working on the show with you, he'd come in and some stuff and I'd go, oh my God, that is cool. Like, really cool, you know? And I go, I can wear that. No. Now, if LeVar wears this, right, this is how he looks wearing this, it's like, just as cool, and people say, yeah. Now, if I wore that, that's what I look like.
Michael, in your own defense, and we have talked about this, you have found your own style.
Thank God for Barbados.
Thank God for Barbados, because you look great.
Thank you
in this clothes.
Thank you.
Hey,
Hi, Amy. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you.
So,
Did you have questions for us?
I have a couple questions, and then of course we'll throw it to the audience in a little bit.
Is anybody having a good time?
So yeah, you guys have been busy. There's lots of voice work, there's directing. You know, Levar, you've been doing a lot of directing lately, right? NCIS?
NCIS NOLA is really 2, 3. No, I love the show. I love the crew, and of course I love Scott Bakula. And I get to go to New Orleans twice a year to shoot. Once in the summer, yeah, which is not so great because it's really humid in New Orleans in the summer. But it's just an amazing city, and I've fallen in love. And really, I think it's one of the most special places on the planet. New Orleans.
That's great to hear. I'm going for the first time.
Are you really?
Yeah, a friend of mine's getting married.
Here's what you need to look forward to.
Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear the secrets of New Orleans.
It's only 2 words. Day drinking.
I think I might be able to oblige you on that.
That's a thing in New Orleans. Day drinking. Yep. It's practically a social imperative.
So Michael, have you been anywhere cool lately? Dolores clearly in love with New Orleans.
Yeah, actually, I took a vacation.
Where'd you go?
Japan.
Nice.
And I gotta tell you, I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
It was, you've been there, right?
We went 3 summers ago.
Yeah.
It's a family. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like,
Where'd you go?
we went to Kyoto,
Uh-huh.
and we stayed in a little town called Uji. And then we went to Tokyo.
Yes. So you did Kyoto first and then
Kyoto first, then Tokyo. And it appealed to my orderly nature.
Your orderly aesthetic. I get it.
I have a very orderly nature.
Yep.
And they were so nice.
Politest people on the planet. More polite than Canadians.
Is that possible?
If it's possible. If that's possible, and it is. They are.
Sorry, they've just usurped Canadians.
Yeah. In the nice department.
In the nice department. I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I love the temples.
Yes.
We went to a bunch of the temples. We went to a Shogun temple with the
Shogun era.
Yeah, with the sunrise, and it's very funny because this is how, super interesting. This was like, they were built in like 1000s or something like that. And they built the floors in a way that when you walk on it, it sounded like, people were going, there's canaries. It sounds like canaries. And they built that so that if any enemies tried to sneak in, they'd hear
Security system.
but it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that was fantastic.
Wonderful, wonderful country, wonderful culture, wonderful culture.
And clean.
Yes.
The trains.
Yes.
Even if they're older, super clean.
Buses, city buses.
And two other things, they respect each other's, space.
Personal space.
So there's no loud talking on phones.
Nope.
No cell phones on the trains.
Nope.
And they are on time.
Yes, they are.
It ain't New York City. I'm right outside New York, so
Oh, I mean,
the MTA is the fan of all of us.
let me tell you something. They had we were going, I think we were going from Tokyo. No, we were going to Tokyo. And there was, the train was supposed to leave at 5:04. Odd time. At 5:04, the train was on. It was amazing. I loved it.
Michael is a sucker for punctuality, clearly.
You know what I
You've
love
done some
about
voice
Japan?
work too lately, right? You've done some voice work, right?
Oh, yes, voice work?
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah. I did, just recently I did a thing for the library, the Smithsonian, for the anniversary of the moon.
Oh, for Apollo 11, the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 shot. Very nice. So your voice is going to be in the Smithsonian talking about the Apollo 11 moonshot?
Exactly.
I cannot wait to
It was
go
great.
and hear that.
Yeah, it was great.
Very nice. How did you observe the anniversary? Did you observe the anniversary?
Yes, I did. I had a quiet moment for all the astronauts.
Yeah.
The ones I had met.
Yes.
Passed on.
Who have passed on?
Dick Gordon.
Right.
Also, and this is sort of like a little side thing, most people know I love aviation. And I had an F-86 Saberjet at one point.
Yes, you did.
For about 4 years.
Yes, you did.
And when I sold it, my broker said, "Hey, Michael, I got a call from this guy who wants to look at your airplane. He really wants to think." I said, "Really?" I said, "Who is it?" "It's Frank Borman." And I went, "Frank Borman? Frank Borman?" He said, "Yeah." And I'm sorry, I love you guys, but I was like you when he showed up.
Right.
And Frank Borman gets out of this Mitsubishi and he comes over and he's like, and I'm just like, "Yeah, how you doing, man? What's going on?"
On the outside.
On the inside, oh God.
Nice
And
to know that you guys have the fan moment.
Oh, with NASA and real astronauts.
NASA.
These people actually go up in space.
Oh, I know. I was hanging out with you guys from NASA last night. It was a blast.
And the thing is, they're saying, "Okay, we want you to be shot up into space in a rocket and go around the moon and come back, and we've never done this before." And you go, and they said, "Yeah, okay, cool."
Yeah, I volunteer.
But the last part of that is that he bought my airplane.
He did.
And so I went down to Chino and delivered the airplane, and he came and said, "Michael, tell me about the airplane, and I started explaining to Frank, "Okay, Frank, when you start the airplane, you got to drop the throttle a little bit, and you do this," and he goes, "Yeah, I think I remember that." And I go, "Yes, and these dials here, if you remember that, if you do that, it'll burble, and you don't." He says, "Yeah, I think I remember that." And I go, "Oh my God, he flew this airplane in combat." And I went, "I'm teaching Frank Borman." And I said, "Frank, just tell me if you see anything that you don't recognize."
You're selling your baby to him, though.
Oh, and he was, but you know what? It was great. And I had a week of watching all that stuff. I just,
Really?
yeah, you and I were both.
Yeah,
we loved it.
very, 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 very big fans
So
of
that's
of the space program, especially the way it used to be. Big fan of Charlie Bolden's, former head of NASA, NASA administrator. Don't even know who the person is now, but I know that they're not connected to space or to the space program. Hidden Figures. Right? 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 Nope, that was not in any textbook I had as a child, and that's a damned shame. That's a story. That's amazing, right? You see, that's America. Do you mind?
No, do I mind? No, I do not mind. Especially about talking about ladies in the space program. There's some wonderful women who made a contribution that we only recently now know about.
Absolutely. And I think that this is a country that doesn't tell its own story well. Because
and you would know about who tells the story well.
We leave so much out of the story. Like your friend, Andrew Jackson. Michael was reading a book, a biography of Andrew Jackson last year. Was it last year?
In Hawaii.
In Hawaii. And I gave him such shit. Because
I said, yeah, you know, they said, what are you reading? I said, reading this book about Andrew Jackson. He said, yeah, the one that killed all the Indians? Yes, Levar. But he was this, yeah, the one that had all the slaves? Yeah. So, you don't like him, do you?
Not at all.
But yeah, it is.
And he was a president too, wasn't he? Yeah.
But you know, it is, it's true. I mean, for me, not to know about Hidden Figures was something that was just...
It's unconsciously not okay.
And these women were sending these guys into space.
They were responsible for the calculations that not only sent them, but brought them home.
Have you seen the photo of Margaret Hamilton with all that code that she wrote standing up next to her? I love that photo.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So we don't do a good job of telling our own story. We tell the story of how America was founded. We cite, and I did read this in the textbooks when I was a kid, we cite something called manifest destiny, which basically means that God said we should come to this land and steal it from the native peoples, and that was okay, right? Manifest destiny.
I think we need a redefinition. I'm going to put you in charge of that.
Right. Don't put two black men in charge of redefining manifest destiny. Because you're going to get the truth.
We want the truth.
Not the
I have a
sanitized,
question.
make America great again version. We will give you the truth. TRUFF.
If you guys could have authored one book already written, what would you want to have penned? I thought that would be a good Levar question and a good Michael question, since you guys are both such avid readers.
I've never been asked this question before, so
Ooh, I love
I'm
it.
really excited. But it's hard. It's hard.
It's a hard one.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I just read, I'm sorry, I'm in the middle, and I'm engrossed in it, of Thomas Paine's, not the Age of Reason.
That's what I was going to say.
What?
Common sense?
Uncommon sense.
No,
No.
there's a third one.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm,
Not a huge Thomas Paine fan.
Wow.
I mean, aficionado. I mean, I love the concepts, but I'm not that familiar. I didn't know we had three. I thought there were two.
yeah, there was three. There's Common Sense, there's Age of Reason, and there's another one.
We all have smartphones.
We do, right?
Thank you.
What's it called?
The Rights of Man.
The Rights of Men. The Rights of Men.
He would
Thank
have. There's a lot of stuff about him. One of the things that he fought to have slavery out of the Constitution, but he lost.
He lost that.
He lost another one about voting something. He lost that one.
He lost that one.
Did you think of one, Levar?
For very personal reasons, and it's not a great book, But it is the book that I was reading when I got what reading offered me. It's a... Captains Courageous, Rudyard Kipling.
Oh, wonderful.
And Kipling gets applause.
Of all things.
And that would be the book, because for me, when I finished that book, I recognized that I had been somewhere that was not, my bedroom in Sacramento, California. I was on a journey, and that when it was over, when I closed the book, turned the last page and closed the book, I got really sad because I was leaving that world. Now, as an adult, I recognize that as early stage depression. Well, it is if you suffer. Well, the sadness of leaving that world and those characters behind, it hit me. It hit me hard. And to this day, when I'm reading a particularly good piece of fiction, I slow down. I savor the last couple of chapters because I'm forestalling that sadness, that sense of, oh, I'm done.
You talk a little bit about that on your podcast? Can you tell everyone where to find your podcast?
Anybody listening to the Levar Burton Reads podcast? Only the smart ones.
It's called Levar Burton Reads. Why wouldn't you?
I read a short story in every episode, and I say at the beginning of every episode, the only thing these stories have in common is that I love them, and I hope you will too. And so I read short fiction, a lot of science fiction and fantasy, because that's my go-to genre. And I'm pleased to still be connecting adults now who grew up on reading Rainbow with new authors.
I told Levar backstage I was a big fan of him since I was little. To have my master's in English.
You have your master's in English Lit, so,
Yeah.
like my mom.
And I remember when the episode came on when you took the viewers to the set of The Next Generation. And my mom was like, these are two things Amy loves. And it's just that she's like, you have to watch it.
One of my favorite moments, I have two favorite moments in the Reading Rainbow episode behind the scenes of Star Trek. One is where Rob Legato, the visual effects supervisor, shows us how we did the transporter sparkles with glitter stirred in water, and that was the effect that was the phenomenon that they photographed to create that special effect, right? And the other moment is a moment when Michael Dorn is stepping out of the makeup trailer, and he says, careful, stand aside, I take big steps. Right?
So I know we're gonna get the question from the audience. I'm gonna have two things before we take questions. So the first one is, they're gonna ask the Picard show. Where do you see Geordi and Worf now? Do you think you would return to them if you were asked? Michael's passing it to LeVar.
What's the question?
Geordi and Worf, where do you think they are now?
I have no idea.
And if we asked to return, would you say yes?
Well, yeah.
Wonderful.
If they ask nicely.
I think
If they
that's
ask
nice
nicely.
about it.
Put some zeros behind that ass.
The thing is with me is that it all...
You don't need money.
Well, it comes with a caveat.
You got all that Deep Space Nine cash.
Still under my mattress.
$1.
$1. Now, there's always a caveat with me, which is getting back in makeup. 3 hours every day. It's not an easy process. It's not fun, and that's the only thing that kind of, you know. But I'm with LeVar. If they ask nicely, then yeah, you better.
Oh. Can't wait. We hope that. So actually, Mark has something really cool that he brought today.
Is it show and tell?
It's show and tell time. You're gonna love it.
So, for years, I have been promising to bring the visor, because invariably at a con during the Q&A, there's somebody who asks, what could you see out of the visor? And my answer is very little. And then I go on to explain that I put the visor on by screwing it into my head. Exactly. Yeah. So, I brought the visor.
It's a group effort.
These are the two male ends of the screws that fit into the female ends of the visor.
Look at this. Look how cool this is.
I used to be able to do this with it on my face, but I can't anymore because I'm woefully out of practice. It's only been, like 30 years.
Look at this.
It's time to take it off. But see, I didn't lie, you guys. I screwed the visor into my head. I rest my case.
Thank you so much for bringing that little piece of Star Trek history. Now he has to take it off. We're gonna light up the question askers. We're gonna get them on deck. Who we got? We got somebody over here. We got somebody over here. All right. Levar's handling it.
I just want to say first, I grew up with Star Trek: The Next Generation, and
On this side.
this side.
You can see now. You can see her now.
I grew up with Star Trek: The Next Generation. It's the show I know the most and probably love the most because of that, simply, but also because it's just a great show. You guys have already talked about it a little bit ago, but I just basically wanted to ask about how excited you are for Star Trek Picard and your thoughts and feelings about it generally.
I'm always happy when my friends
Are working.
are working. Always happy for them, especially when they get something that is really amazing. Everybody, whenever one of them has I'm just like head over heels. I think it's from what I've seen, I think it's going to be super interesting. There's always a disconnect, not a disconnect, that's not the right word for it. There's always a time where you see how it's going to be, and then you see the reality, where it is a really tenuous time, because, everybody's excited about it. Oh, this is going to be super interesting. I think the premise is interesting. I think all of it is interesting. Just have to wait and see how it comes together. But I'm a fan of all my friends on the show, so I'm pulling for it.
And I can't wait. I'm a fan of Star Trek. Have been since the original series, and Picard is my favorite captain.
Shocked. Next question.
You had two captains, but I'm not going to ask you to declare which one is your favorite. Go ahead.
No, Picard is my favorite captain. Yeah. And I got to say, because at first, we all kind of knew Avery, and we didn't know Patrick Stewart.
Right.
Just a little bit, just hints when he first started. But we did a show, and I don't remember the name of it, but it was the first season, maybe the second or third show. And I was still looking at them like, well, this is an interesting choice. I didn't judge it, but I was like,
The bald British guy?
yeah, I mean, okay. But he did this one speech, and I went, oh, yes,
I get it.
I get it, yeah. So
He doesn't suck.
he does not suck.
Does not.
No.
Heard it here first, you guys. He doesn't suck. Okay, we're ready for you over here.
First of all, Lord, thank you for putting up with the visor for so long. And Levar, when you direct, how do you choose the camera angles and all that good jazz?
That's actually a good question. I don't always choose them. There are certain, when I'm prepping, there are certain things that I want to see through the lens, and I'm very specific about those images. A lot of the time, I leave it to the DP, because that's his area of expertise, right? The director of photography knows much more about photographing the work than I ever will. My father was a photographer. I'm an enthusiast when it comes to photography, but it's like I leave the making of the costumes to the pros, right? Same with where the camera is. Like I said, there are some images that I see in my head and I want to make sure that I get those for my cut, but most of the time I'm collaborating with the director of photography. You're welcome, thank you.
All right, hey Morgan.
Hey,
Morgan's
Amy.
asking us
Hey,
questions.
guys.
I'm Morgan.
Good to see you again. Well, Amy, I have a love-hate relationship with you right now because you kind of stole my question a little bit.
Uh-oh.
But I'm going to ask anyway. She phrased up, books that have already been written that you'd like to rewrite or maybe change or have been a part of. But I'm curious, what is one book that you think everyone should read?
Oh, you know what? It's a very simple book too. I think everyone should read The Little Prince by a superhero. Everyone. What is important, what is essential, is invisible to them.
Beautiful choice. I love that book.
I think Cyrano de Bergerac.
Ooh.
If you get a chance to read it, actually read it's funny and poignant, and it goes to the heart of judging a book by its cover, which is something I'm very passionate about, is not judging a book by its cover.
When it comes to human beings, you mean?
Oh yeah, you miss
So
much.
that's a good choice. Unexpected.
Thank you, guys.
Erudite. Cyrano? I'll tell you later.
We got one over here.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. My question has to do with the novel Aftermath, which I just recently reread. And given that it was written, a minute ago,
A minute and a half.
but is set right now.
It is, isn't it?
I was left wondering if, this is my question, whether or not Barack Obama has a copy of that book, but also if you had an opportunity to rewrite it.
I wouldn't touch a word. I would not
Okay.
touch a word.
Well, given that you've lived through the span of time
Yeah.
between when you wrote it
Yeah.
and right now,
Yeah.
is there anything that you would either include, remove, or simply update?
Well, there was a lot I got right.
Can you give like a two-sentence summary? Maybe someone something.
In the foreword to the book, I predict a schism in America, where in the military, it begins in the military, where all of the white soldiers line up with a white general and the black soldiers line up with an African American commander. Simultaneously, there is an earthquake on the New Madrid Fault in the Midwest. There is a fire on the space station, which causes it to fall out of the sky, and the economy collapses. It's sort of a chain of events that lead to the opening. That's all before the novel starts.
It's impressive.
So I got some shit right. And I predicted an African American president when I didn't even believe we'd ever see one in my lifetime. Right? Am I right? So I think I'd stand pat. I couldn't have predicted our current situation, and wouldn't care to spend any more time thinking about it.
Thank you so much.
Our current situation, that is. You know what I mean.
Over here.
Hi, this is for Michael. I actually walked by you a couple times in the buying room, and I was too afraid to say hi, so hi. But you're
It's always
asking
safer at a
questions.
distance, isn't it?
I felt much safer in
Right?
the format, yeah.
Right.
But then in the previous panel, Terry Farrell said some rather interesting things about the relationship you guys had. So I wondered if you had any comments about certain scenes you enjoyed.
No. What did she say? What did she say?
We need to tell her. What did she
What did
say?
she say?
She mentioned that her favorite scenes with you were, playing, touching, kissing, all of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
especially in the wedding, if you had anything did that stand out to you? Do you still look back?
In the wedding?
Yes, like when you.
No, I wasn't a fan of the wedding. Just from purely, it dealt with a lot of other stuff around us and people talking to her and wasn't,
What about the wedding? Was
it
it?
wasn't about the wedding, and I didn't like the costumes. I thought they were just, I love Bob acting, but they kind of go.
It's hard to hit a home run every week.
Yeah, so, those weren't the wedding wasn't my favorite episodes. The episodes that I
What about the touching, Michael? She asked about the
You're
touching.
like the singer.
Touching. You want to hear about the touching?
Let's hear about the touch.
The touching. I hear about the costume.
I am, well, yes, I understand. You don't have to kill me. I am a very lucky actor. Because I knew Terry before she got the show, and I always thought she was fabulous looking. She still is fabulous looking for all my money. But to be able to you got lost sometimes in the touching and kissing. I really did. And the look on my face in a lot of those episodes where she finishes kissing me and I have this kind of stupid look on my face, that was Worf and Michael Dorn. That was sort of like, huh. Yeah, that was nice.
More fun later.
Yeah, no, and yeah, it was great.
Thank you. Next one. You have to follow that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. My name is Ryan, and I am a blind engineer. And I would like to know.
Oh, Ryan, we took a picture earlier.
Yes,
didn't
we did.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. So I would like to know, how did you prepare to play a blind engineer? And knowing already that there weren't any cane skills to learn, you didn't have to learn how to navigate with Pumpkin here, but you had that wonderful visor that you have up there, and oh gosh, I wish I could actually see it with my hands, but we'll leave that alone for now. Anyway, I'm curious how you prepared for this role.
The hardest thing, Ryan, was learning how to move around with the kind of confidence that the chief engineer needed to move around the ship without seeing my feet, right? And so the first season was really painful and full of bruises, but I got used to it. I got used to walking around and moving quickly without seeing my feet. I'm bringing the visor to you, Ryan, so you can see it.
Wow.
You're welcome.
How wonderful.
That was fun.
That was awesome.
That was
Thank
awesome.
you so much.
That was awesome. Thank you, Ryan. You know, that's what I love about Star Trek. I mean, it's one of the things that I love about Star Trek is the world that Gene created is all about diversity and inclusion, and that all of the variety that life itself offers is respected and honored in the Star Trek universe. And, you know, that moment I will never forget.
How many people, you know, have come up to you and said, you know, thank you for portraying this particular disability. Blind characters are very unusual on television.
And people dealing with physical challenges are still rare in the popular culture, just as seeing people who looked like us was very rare in the 60s, and it's the reason why my family and I gravitated towards Star Trek, because it was a place where we were able to see a representation of us that was positive, right? That Uhura was in the command structure on this ship, and she had the respect of the captain and the other crew members. At a time in my life when being a young black kid in Sacramento, California wasn't so much freaking fun. You know what I mean, Michael? And Altadena either, was it? So, there you go.
Yeah. Well, now you have to follow that. Go ahead.
My best shot. Anyway, my question is for both of you, if that's okay. But given the fact that 17 years ago, Nemesis was not really a success as we hoped, and since then, the J.J. Abrams movies and Discovery kind of took over the Star Trek landscape, I was kind of delighted, or I was very delighted and extremely surprised when the new Picard news came out last year, and Patrick Stewart came out on stage and whatnot.
In this very room, wasn't it? Right? It was like a year ago now.
Yeah.
I was wondering, you know, if each of you gentlemen, how surprised each of you were when you first heard about this, that Star Trek with Picard and, you know, Data was coming back. Were you as surprised as I was?
Is Data in it? Where?
I think you gotta try to catch up with Brent.
Hey, he didn't say anything to me.
He didn't tell me that. You didn't know it?
Completely rude.
Really?
No, Data's dead.
I watched him go. I watched him. He left, and then he didn't come back. And it blew up over there. So,
You know, the one thing I was surprised about that I will say is that I would have bet good money that Patrick would not come back to the show.
same. Yeah.
That's the one.
That's the thing that surprises me more than anything.
The Star Trek, the Next Generation, I felt that they finally caught up to the rest of the world that the Next Generation still had, you know, was viable.
I think the rest of the world caught up to Next Gen in terms of its appreciation of what we did for 7 seasons. That was pretty extraordinary.
Well, I think
those guys.
no,
Yes.
they're not the world.
Yeah.
The rest of the world was going, hey, when are we going to see Next Generation? They were going, yeah, we want to do this. Finally, they got it. But, like I said, I would have bet
Good money.
good money. Not all the money.
No, not all of them.
Not that, I wouldn't have bet the Deep Space Nine.
Not the mattress money.
Next Generation money, yes. But not Deep Space Nine. That Patrick would never have done it.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're getting a wrap-up signal, unfortunately, but it's been a splendid. Oh, well, there's a pilot friend over here. I think, all right. No?
Are you a pilot or are you not, sir?
I'm a real pilot. Yes, but real quick question.
Is that an allusion to the first season where Jordy flew the ship?
No. Real F-16s, stealth, and yeah, real.
You used to fly the stealth? Can I shake your hand?
Of course you can.
God bless you. God bless you.
Well, my question, quickly, I guess you see the band, is your families. The role that your families played. I don't know if you were married at the time of the series, or if you weren't, siblings, or mother, father. Your family's, I guess, influence on where you took these iconic characters.
That's a good one to end on.
Thank you so much.
Well, I will tell you. I will tell you very, very quickly because I'm about to get played off. This is not the Academy Awards, okay? Very quickly, though, how the nature of the importance of families, and how for all of us, we all became each other's family in addition to our blood relatives. By example, October 3rd, 1982, I got married, and my best man was 92? 92, thank you, Michael, 1992, thank you. Do not tell my wife. There are cameras everywhere.
They're not going to tweet about it, it's fine.
Yeah, they're not going to tweet about it. The day I got married, my best man was Brent Spiner. My groomsmen were Jonathan Frakes, Patrick Stewart, and Michael Dorn.
They just kept me grounded. And my mother, up until the last year of the show, thought that it was just a fluke. And she says,
how many you were working?
I said, Mom, we're going into our 7th season. She goes, Michael, that's really good. But they're hiring down at the post office.
Welcome back. Again, I am Heather Ferris, your unofficial host for Star Trek Las Vegas, and I am joined by Fred and Rocky, and oh my god, I can't believe Levar Burton brought his visor!
That was friggin' cool.
I nearly died!
How many years did he say since he had it on?
I don't know,
It
but
was like over a decade.
he had the box and everything, and it was in the, nice little
Oh,
velvet.
the porta brace case. You pop that sucker open, and it's like,
And he had
and he
the
pulls it
actual
out,
one.
puts the thing on, and the crowd goes wild.
Yes!
It was flash photography everywhere. I mean, right? That was amazing.
It felt like a rock concert. It was that much flash photography.
The funny thing about that is, you put that on, he can't see a darn thing through it. It's literally, he's not seeing.
And
He's got to learn how to get around and maneuver.
Right.
And he had to do that back in the day. I don't know if that skill set is still with him. Is that something you have to practice?
You probably.
And he was getting around and walking around on stage with it.
Yeah.
And talking to that stage is pretty high up. So if you miss the one step.
Well, he did do it for 7 years, so maybe
That's true.
maybe it just comes back to you after doing it for so long.
It's like riding a bike.
You've been on that stage enough times too. You probably kind of get a feel for it.
Yeah, and I liked how the whole reason why he brought it is because for years and years he's been saying, oh, instead of putting on the visor, he had to screw on the visor.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what do you mean screw on the visor? And he's like, well, I'll bring it and I'll show you. And that's exactly what he did. He showed us.
And then what happened was there was a blind engineer.
That was really neat.
That was the coolest friggin' thing of that day.
That was so freaking cool because the blind engineer, he can't see it. So he was like, I really wish I could feel it. And he's like, okay.
And LeVar just gets up, he's not even finished asking the question. LeVar's halfway across the stage, bringing it to him so he can feel out what the real one feels like.
Can you believe he actually touched it.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Not many people get to do that.
True.
No,
Yeah.
that was just so
Very
amazing.
cool, man. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, so
LeVar
much.
is the coolest character.
He is.
The guy's got so much class, you know.
He is,
Exactly.
yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
And it's always really, really fun to watch these types of panels too, with LeVar Burton, Michael Dorn, and usually Brent Spiner. And it's so funny. They are hilarious together. It's always funny. They tell the best jokes. They tell the best stories.
And you hear usually the best Picard impersonation.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Great
Although
impersonations.
they didn't really I mean, Brent did on his panel. He did it right.
Yeah,
But not
exactly.
Dorn.
That was Brent Spiner.
Yeah. What did
Yeah.
Which
What
we'll
did
talk
Michael
about
Dorn
later.
talk about?
Oh, he talked about a lot of stuff. So, again, there was the woman there who was asking about the books and what kind of books
okay.
did you
Yes,
want.
yep.
And they were, Dorn said that he really enjoyed reading and thinks everyone else should read The Rights of Men. So that was one thing Dorn said. Another thing was Burton said that for the books, Captain's Courage. Oh, actually, I didn't get the full title.
You
Never
didn't?
mind. No, I didn't get the full title. It was,
It was
Cap-
by Kipling, though.
Oh, it was
Google
by
Kipling
Kipling.
and figure out. Yeah.
Just check.
You'll find it. It's on the internet someplace.
Yeah, check the video and
Watch the panel.
Yeah, you
again.
watched the panel. We're
You
after the
just
panel
saw
already.
it.
So yeah, you figure it out.
That is just awesome. And then they were also talking, LeVar Burton was talking about the podcast he has, where they basically, it's an adult version of Reading Rainbow. where
And
they
when they mentioned Reading Rainbow,
Yeah.
the crowd just,
went wild.
yeah, everybody loves that.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. It was just so amazing.
yeah, because LeVar has talked about it before, and a lot of people are familiar with it. So
Yeah, and they even go into the space program and everything when they talked about the space program and Hidden Figures and how
yes.
they both love like the
That
space
was so
program.
good to hear them nerd out about
That was.
actual astronauts in space.
Yes.
That's a beautiful
Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of the people who watch Star Trek, myself included, we love science. We love, just the stars, the galaxies, everything, and then for them to have those same passions. Picardo is another good example where he's a part of the planetary, society, and it's just giddy. I don't know any other word for it. It's just giddy.
I mean, it's,
Yeah, he's
you'd
excited.
You'd be just as
Yeah.
giddy if you met the astronauts too. So I mean, that's
Right?
it's awesome.
They asked if they were going to be on Picard.
Oh, of course.
Right. And they're like, well, they have to invite us. They didn't invite us. They should just invite everyone.
I think they should send a memo out to everybody. It's just like, you just consider yourselves all invited. We'll figure it out.
Exactly.
It probably doesn't work that way though.
if I were to speculate, I think as the series goes on, and I'm assuming there are going to be multiple seasons, and based upon what we've seen so far for season 1, as far as the trailer goes, I think there probably will be. But anyway.
But
we'll probably see more guest stars.
I can't wait to get into the show because when it comes out, we don't know where it's going.
Right.
We don't know what's happening. It's a complete mystery to us. We got a couple snippets on the clip. It's a beautiful trailer, but we don't know. I mean, there's so much that we don't know. Is it going to be a short story, or is it going to be a long story? Is it going to be a continuing thing?
Yeah.
Is it going to be an opportunity to get all these wonderful other actors in? We have no idea.
I mean, there are already a handful that are announced for season 1. You've got Riker, Troy, 7 of 9, Data.
Wouldn't it be Riker? Just saying.
So if there's a season 2, we could easily see, different familiar characters
That's
pop
true.
up.
Yeah.
Maybe they're doing that where it's like every season they're going to have different characters involved. That would be really interesting.
That would be.
That would be cool. And then they wouldn't have to be there for the whole thing. They would
Right.
just be there for that one series or that one season.
But that's our speculations.
Just speculation.
We have no idea.
Nothing official.
At this point in time, we don't know nothing.
And then another thing too that I really liked listening to was how he was talking about how the crew was family. And then when he was saying, oh, when I got married, which by the way, he got the marriage day wrong, that was hilarious.
Yes.
It's like my-
Oh, he's like,
81,
don't tell my
81,
wife.
Instead of 91.
Yeah, I said
Yeah.
92, something like
Oh,
that.
that was something else.
My wife is going to kill me.
Well, you know, what are you going to do? It's just a number.
Right? And then he was saying like Spiner, Dorn, Stewart, Frakes, they were all like a part of it, either the best men or the groomsmen and everything.
Yes.
Like that's how much
That-
of a family they were.
Yeah, that's really neat. You know, it tells you that they were really close, and they still are very close.
Right.
Yeah.
And even Dorn said that like the family, it kept him grounded during the series and everything. So that was
Right.
pretty important.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that pretty much does it for me. How about you guys? Is there anything extra that you guys want to add?
I think we've covered all the highlights, and we look forward to presenting the next panel.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, cool. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for watching the panel. Thank you for watching the commentary. And also thank you for joining us at the Star Trek convention. Please join us again next time for the next panel, and we hope to see you soon. Talk to you later. Bye.